Toxic people do not come into your life with a warning label. They come in with warmth, with charm, with the uncanny ability to make you feel like you have finally found someone who truly understands you. And then slowly, so slowly you almost miss it happening, they begin to take everything. Your confidence, your clarity, your sense of reality, your trust in your own judgment. Until one day you look in the mirror and realize that the person looking back at you is quieter, smaller, and more uncertain than the person who existed before this relationship began. Stay right there. Because understanding the dark psychology behind how toxic people actually operate is the most important protection you will ever give yourself. If you are new here, subscribe right now and drop a comment below telling me, have you ever been in a relationship with a toxic person and not realized it until it was too late? Now let us get into it. How toxic people actually work. The first thing you need to understand about toxic people is that the most dangerous ones are never obviously dangerous. The obviously difficult person, the one who is immediately rude, immediately critical, immediately aggressive, is easy to identify and easy to distance yourself from. Your instincts fire immediately and you move away. The truly toxic person is different. They are sophisticated, patient, strategic in ways that are almost never conscious but are extraordinarily effective. They begin with what psychologists call love bombing. An overwhelming amount of attention, affection, validation, and connection delivered at a pace and intensity that feels intoxicating. They make you feel chosen. Seen in a way you have rarely been seen. Special in a way that creates a rapid and powerful emotional bond. This is not a calculated performance in most cases. Many toxic people genuinely feel this intensity in the early stages of a relationship. But what it functionally does, regardless of intention, is create a deep emotional dependency before you have had nearly enough time or experience to see who this person actually is when the intensity fades. And the intensity always fades. What replaces it is gradual, incremental, calibrated just below the threshold of what would make you leave. The criticism that starts small and grows. The invalidation that arrives wrapped in concern. The isolation from friends and family that happens through guilt rather than demand. The version of reality the toxic person offers that slowly replaces your own until you are no longer sure what you actually think, feel, or remember. This process has a name in psychology. It is called coercive control. And it is one of the most psychologically sophisticated and damaging things one human being can do to another. Let us get specific. Because toxic people use recognizable patterns, and knowing them is the difference between being caught inside them and seeing them clearly enough to step outside. The first tactic is gaslighting. Gaslighting is the systematic undermining of your perception of reality. It happens in statements like "that never happened," "you are imagining things," "you are too sensitive," "everyone agrees with me on this." Over time, repeated gaslighting does something genuinely dangerous to the mind of the person on the receiving end. It creates a state of chronic self-doubt. A condition where you stop trusting your own memory, your own feelings, your own perception of events. Where you begin to outsource your sense of reality to the very person who has been distorting it. The person who is being gaslit does not usually recognize it as gaslighting. They recognize it as confusion. As the feeling that they must be getting things wrong. As a growing uncertainty about their own reliability as a witness to their own experience. That confusion is not an accident. It is the intended outcome. The second tactic is intermittent reinforcement. This is the most psychologically binding mechanism in the toxic relationship arsenal. And it is the primary reason people stay in relationships they know are damaging them. Intermittent reinforcement is the unpredictable alternation between warmth and coldness, approval and criticism, closeness and withdrawal. The good periods feel extraordinary, especially because they follow a difficult period. The difficult periods feel survivable, especially because the good period is always potentially just around the corner. This pattern creates a psychological bond that is stronger than a consistently good relationship would create. Because the brain's reward system responds most powerfully not to consistent reward but to unpredictable reward. The uncertainty itself becomes addictive. The chase for the next good period becomes the organizing force of the entire relationship. This is why people describe toxic relationships as feeling like an addiction. Neurologically speaking, that description is accurate. The third tactic is triangulation. Introducing a third party, real or implied, into the dynamic to create insecurity, competition, and the desperate need to win the toxic person's approval. It sounds like everyone agrees that you are being unreasonable, or my ex never had a problem with this, or other people appreciate what I do for them. Triangulation keeps you off balance. Keeps you competing. Keeps the focus on earning approval rather than on honestly evaluating whether the relationship is actually good for you. Right here in the middle of this video I want to pause. If you are recognizing any of these tactics in a relationship you are currently in or have been in, drop a comment right now telling me which one hit closest to home. Your honesty in this community is powerful. It creates a space where people who have been made to feel crazy for their own experience can finally feel seen and understood. And if you are not yet subscribed, please do it right now. Hit subscribe and turn on the bell. We cover the psychology of human behavior and relationships every single week in ways that give you real understanding and real tools. Now let us finish this. Why you attracted a toxic person. This section requires a particular kind of honesty. And it needs to begin with something important. Attracting a toxic person is not your fault. It is not evidence that something is wrong with you. It is not a reflection of your worth or your intelligence or your judgment. Toxic people are extraordinarily skilled at identifying and connecting with specific psychological profiles. Not because they consciously hunt, but because their own patterns naturally align with and activate certain vulnerabilities that some people carry more than others. The most common vulnerabilities that toxic people are drawn to are high empathy, a deep need for connection, a history of conditional love, low self-worth disguised as high achievement, and the belief that love requires effort and sacrifice to be real. If you grew up in an environment where love was unpredictable or conditional, you learned that the good periods in a relationship are worth enduring the difficult ones for. You learned that working hard to earn someone's approval is how love works. You learned that your needs are less important than the needs of the people around you. These lessons made complete sense in the environment where they were learned. But they create a perfect template for the toxic relationship dynamic. Because the toxic relationship is built on exactly these mechanics. Unpredictable love. Conditional approval. Your needs consistently secondary to theirs. The familiarity of it is part of why it feels so much like connection in the beginning. It feels like home. Because in an uncomfortable way it resembles the emotional landscape you grew up in. Understanding this is not about self-blame. It is about self-knowledge. Because self-knowledge is the only thing that interrupts the pattern. How to protect yourself. The protection against toxic people is not cynicism. It is not closing yourself off from connection or treating every new relationship with suspicion. It is the development of a specific kind of discernment. The ability to watch what people consistently do over time rather than simply responding to how they make you feel in the early stages. Feeling is fast. Behavior is slow. And the truth about a person almost always lives in the behavior pattern across time rather than in the feeling generated in the early intensity. Here is what to watch for. Watch for how they treat you when you disappoint them. The toxic person's response to disappointment is disproportionate, punishing, or withdrawn in ways designed to create anxiety. The genuinely good person's response to disappointment is direct, honest, and proportional. Watch for how they talk about the people in their past. If every previous relationship ended because of someone else's complete failure, if they have no accountability for their own role in anything that went wrong, that pattern is information about what your relationship will eventually look like from their perspective. Watch for how you feel in the relationship over time rather than in the peak moments. The peak moments in a toxic relationship are extraordinary. The baseline is draining, confusing, and anxiety-producing. That baseline is the real relationship. The peaks are the bait. And watch for what happens when you establish a limit. The person who genuinely respects you will accept your limits even if they need a moment to adjust. The toxic person will violate, negotiate around, or punish you for the limit until you abandon it. That response to your limits is one of the clearest diagnostics available. Toxic people are not monsters. Most of them are deeply wounded people operating from unhealed pain, using strategies that were formed in their own difficult history, creating damage they are often not consciously aware of creating. Understanding that does not mean accepting the damage they do. You can have compassion for a person's wound and still refuse to let that wound be inflicted on you. The dark psychology of toxic people is ultimately the psychology of people who never learned how to be in genuine relationship. Who never developed the capacity for real accountability, real empathy, real reciprocity. Who found instead a set of patterns that give them the feeling of connection without the vulnerability of actually showing up as a whole and honest person. You cannot fix that. You did not cause it. And staying in the hope that your love will heal it is one of the most painful and most common mistakes genuinely loving people make. What you can do is know the patterns. Trust the baseline over the peaks. Believe the behavior over the words. And value yourself enough to refuse to organize your life around the management of someone else's unhealed damage. You deserve a relationship that does not require you to shrink. That does not leave you questioning your own reality. That does not make you feel grateful for the absence of pain rather than genuinely nourished by the presence of love. That kind of relationship exists. But only for the person who is willing to walk away from what does not meet that standard. Walk away. If this video gave you clarity about something you have been confused about, please do 3 things right now. Like this video because it might reach someone who is inside a toxic relationship right now and does not yet have the language to understand what is happening to them. Drop a comment below telling me one thing you will never again accept in a relationship. That commitment matters and this community will hold it with you. And if you are not yet subscribed, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell right now. We cover the real psychology of human behavior and relationships every single week. You deserve to understand the people in your life clearly. See you tomorrow.